Hello everyone, Itto's rerun is just around the corner, so in today's video I want to help those debating on wishing for him by going over his positives and negatives at C0. After this I'll also give my opinions on whether you should wish for him. Really quickly, I do also want to give a quick warning to those early in game. If you do wish for Itto, you will be locked from actually leveling him up, as all of his required resources are in Inazuma, so until you reach Inazuma, Itto will not be at his full potential. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. Firstly, with Itto's positives, he is great at C0. Though I've just about always said this for every character, like those I've made build videos on, he is exceptionally great at C0. He deals a lot of damage and easily rips through just about every enemy with his slashes, and his skill Ushi is like a mini Zhongli burst. His attacks also have a good AoE, so you can deal this great damage to multiple enemies. Admittedly, I have invested quite a bit into him, but he's still very strong with less investment, so if you don't want to invest too much into him, don't worry, even with decent investment, he's still a strong DPS. Continuing on with DPS, Itto is a universal DPS. With Itto being a Geo character, many players place him in Geo focused comps, for example Mono Geo or Triple Geo, and rightfully so, as that is his best team comps. However, with his great damage, he can fulfill the role of DPS in non-Geo teams, for example Taser teams or Mel teams, as long as he can reliably get his burst up. Next, Itto's weapons are quite free-to-play friendly, so those that are free-to-play can rest easy, as one of his best weapons is the craftable whiteblind, which can be R5'd, and I recommend to R5 the weapon as it gets much better with refinements. Moreover, his second best in slot weapon is the Skyward Pride, thanks to the vacuum blades created by the weapon's passive. These blades scale off Itto's attack, which when in his burst form, he has a huge amount, and the energy recharge substat will give Itto his recommended energy recharge amount, so you can focus more on damage increasing stats. Though this is a gacha locked weapon, it's very likely that most of you already have this weapon or will eventually get this weapon. If you don't want or have the weapons I mentioned, you can buy the Blackcliff Slasher from the shop, which will give Itto a nice crit damage increase alongside a good increase in attack with each defeated opponent. For low spenders, you can get the Serpent Spine from the Battle Pass. This is another one of Itto's best weapons thanks to its crit rate and damage increase of 30% when all of its stacks are active. Lastly, unlike many other characters, Itto does not need nor benefit from the best supports in the game, so the greats like Bennett, Xingqiu, or Kazuha are not needed by Itto, though he does greatly benefit from Zhongli. Really, he only needs Goro, as Goro will give him energy through his skill, his sacrificial bow, and his skill and talents will buff Itto's damage, all while his burst will gather crystallized shields for Itto. This is great, as for those of you that lack these characters, with Itto you're really not missing out. And when you're making teams in the Abyss, with Itto, these amazing supports are open to be used in the other team you're choosing. As for Itto's negatives, aside from his arm size, the first I want to speak about is his energy recharge. The Ushi does generate a good amount of particles. With his long 10-second cooldown, this causes Itto to struggle with his energy recharge, so Itto will need a battery. The best candidate being Goro with the Favonius Warbow for the previously mentioned reasons. If you were to run Itto in a team without another Geo character, Itto would either need a high amount of energy recharge, or the other 3 party members would have to use Favonius weapons, and of course, limiting 3 characters' damage output, all just a battery, 1 character is far from optimal. So with Itto, you always want to run another Geo character with him, or another battery character. Speaking of energy recharge, much of Itto's greatness is relied on his burst. The instances where Itto is not in his burst, simply he isn't very good, though hurling Ushi still deals good damage. Without his signature weapon, the Red Hornstorm Thresher, his normals are useless as they deal low damage and are slow, though Itto still can perform his charge attacks outside of his burst, which is much better than his normals in terms of damage. It is a headache to slowly build stacks on Itto through his slow normals and then use the stacks physically. All in all, Itto should not be used when out of his burst, so if you're wanting Itto, don't expect him to be an all-around DPS, in that he's a DPS that relies on all of his skills, as Itto heavily relies on his burst. Moving on, the next drawback of Itto is his burst Kisugiri combos. Though very powerful, it has 2 big weaknesses. The first is when Itto casts his burst, his resistance to elements is reduced by 20%, meaning he takes increased damage from enemies. Coupled with the fact that Itto is stationary when performing these slashes, makes for a deadly combo, so Itto will need either a healer or shielder. Second is, as I've mentioned, the stationary nature of his slashes. Because of their nature, Itto struggles with enemies constantly moving around the floor, as he'll have to interrupt his slashes to catch up with the enemies. And there are many reasons why you don't want to repeatedly interrupt his slashes. First, it wastes precious time off his burst. His superlative strength stacks are also wasted, as constantly moving greatly decreases his DPS, and the attack speed gained by the slashes is ended. The last drawback of Itto is that he's Geo. Though this is a given, he won't be able to perform reactions and increase his damage through reactions. He also won't be able to take full advantage of the best supports in the game. For example, Beidou. Though he can effectively use her burst even while charge attacking, he won't be able to take full advantage of her capabilities as units like Ayato can, for instance. With Ayato being a Hydra character, he can trigger the taser reaction and land big hits on multiple enemies at the same time. With all that being said, should you wish for Itto? I would say yes, and a strong yes to those that like Geo and his kit. He really is a strong DPS whose positives far outweigh his negatives, and his negatives are really not even a big deal as they're easily fixable. Plus, he opens new and unique team comps that are not solely Geo teams. He's very player friendly, so regardless if you're free to play or a low spender, you by no means need a signature weapon, nor need his constellations. And that is everything. I hope you all enjoyed and gained from this review of Itto. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. If any of you do have questions regarding Itto, please do not hesitate to ask. I'd be happy to answer. Thank you all for watching. Good luck to all those that are wishing for him. Take care, and thank you once again.